All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to go over HTML forms. What are they? What are they for? How to do them? A little bit of styling, all that kind of stuff. So I'm giving you a couple of files here. I hopefully gave you a start file. That would be nice, right? And then I also have a CSS file in here, but the CSS file is mostly to style this part of the page, which is a quick reference that I included at the bottom. Handy dandy quick reference. To some of the stuff we're going to be doing. So I'm going to hide this sidebar, but you should have both of those files, a start file and a reference page. So just to go over some of the stuff in the reference page or the reference information, just so you know kind of what forms are. So forms are used to collect user input, right? So usually when you're looking at a web page, you are going to a web page and you're downloading information from the server. But what happens when you want to send information back to the server? So that's what a form is for. So they're used for a lot of things like when you're doing registration, you're logging in, you're making a purchase, etc. Other uses like data collection, user authentication, so you're logging in basically, right? You're searching for something, so Google, searching something in Google, that's a form. E-commerce transactions, so you're buying something. I buy something every day just because I want to keep the economy going, right? So e-commerce, file upload. So you upload your picture to a service to get it printed or something like that, and many other uses. So a lot of reasons you want to send information to a server instead of just getting it from the server. It's sort of the other direction. So some of the required elements, go through some of these required tags or just tags in general, attributes, things like that. So every form has to have a form tag. Makes a lot of sense, right? So you have a form tag, and then it has to have a couple of attributes, action and method. And then you have to have a closing form tag, and the input fields, whatever you're going to input information into, goes in between, right? So there's three or attributes to know about, or two attributes and three options. There's action equals URL. So what is that? That is the location. Oh, that's kind of too big, huh? That is a location of the URL of the script that's going to process that form. So that could be a Perl script. It could be Python. It could be almost anything. So there's lots of different ways you can do that, but that's done on the server. So that's what the action attribute is for. And then the method attribute is how does that information get sent? Does it get sent basically in one piece or two? So when you use the get method, it appends or adds on your whatever you typed onto the URL string of the action. So it's good for things like search, short, non-sensitive things, like search. Post is the more common, usually a better choice. It's going to send the information in different packets, different pieces. You're going to use it for longer submissions, passwords, lots of data, anything you want like that. So that's going to be post. So that's probably more common. Another little note, you can't nest I'll make this bigger this way. You can't really nest a form within a form, so no nested forms. There's a label element. So the label is useful to label things, obviously, but it's also useful for screen readers. So screen readers can navigate through a form and it will tell the user what that form input is for. So you want to make sure your pages and your forms are as accessible as possible, right? So the label helps with that, and it's also used for visuals as well. We're going to go through this in a little bit, but there's a couple of attributes that you want to use on a label or with a label, the for and the ID. So what this does, I'll just explain it now, I guess. So we have a label, and it's for the username in this case, and then it says for equals username, and then in the input field it says ID equals username. So that matches this input field, which the user is going to fill out their username, with this label, which is username. So we're going to do this a couple of different ways, and we'll do it together in a minute, but that's kind of how that works. So you're labeling the information for the user. What actually gets sent, and we'll go over this a little bit too, is whatever is here. So you have name and ID. Right now, in this example, they're both the same thing. They don't have to be, but they usually are. So when the data gets sent, whatever the user would type in for a username gets sent to the server, and it'll say name equals and whatever they typed in this field. So the username is, or username gets sent, and then it'll say username equals, and then whatever they typed in. It's kind of a label for the server. This is a label for the user, for the browser. This is sort of a label for the data, if that makes sense. So this gets sent to the server, and I'll say username equals whatever they typed in. And then, so hopefully that makes a little sense. We'll do that in a minute, so hopefully it'll be a little more clear. There's an input element that creates most of the form controls. So the different types of input are called controls or form controls. There's a lot of them, quite a few. So the input tag does most of that, and there's a number of different attributes which you'll see. You can use an ID. Some of these you know already. The name, which is the label for the data that gets sent. There's a type, that one's required. That's what kind of input it is. A value is is another way to say what gets sent to the server. A placeholder is kind of like it sounds, a placeholder for text that's going to sort of hint to the user what they should put in a certain field. You can make a field required or an element required. You can make it already checked. You can set a maximum length so that it doesn't get too long and you don't get sort of a denial of service attack. Somebody puts in a 50,000 word name, right? And then it crashes your server, that kind of thing. You can also use autocomplete, which hints to the browser what kind of data is expected. So kind of like, it's sort of like like an autocomplete, like a hinting. So we'll see some of these as we go through here. These are the common types of input fields. You'll see these in the example when we do it in a minute. So there's text, email, password, all the usual things you would think of. Numbers, telephone numbers, URLs, dates, times, checkboxes and radio buttons. You've used those. Maybe you don't know the technical name for them, but they're just checkboxes and radio buttons. You'll see those. There's files. There's submit and reset buttons that let you submit the form or reset the form. I think there's more, but that's quite a few of them. There's also a text area. So when you want to do like multi-line inputs, like you want to, I don't know, write a paper about the Civil War or something, a short paper, I guess. You might use text area. That's for larger areas of text, bigger than the regular little inputs for text. Some of the attributes for text area are rows and columns. You can say basically how big the text area is. And then the name, again, matches it to the data. And you can put a placeholder inside of text areas as well. There's also a select element. That's like a drop-down, right? So you've all seen drop-downs, especially for things like states or countries, things like that, right? So that is a select menu. It's kind of it's a drop-down. You can think of it as a drop-down menu. So that's what these look like. We're going to do one of those in a minute, so I'll just save that for later when it's more fun. There's a number of different attributes you can apply to those as well, so we'll see that. And then down here, you've got field set and legends. So these are not technically required in a form, but they're a way to group elements together. So field set is sort of part of the form. So it's a set of fields, right? Input fields. And then a legend is sort of a label for the field set. So you'll see that as well. They can be styled. You can do a lot of things with field sets and legends and style them and use them to guide your user. You can put borders around them, that kind of thing. It's also good for accessibility because it helps organize the form for screen readers and people that are vision impaired and things like that. There's a button element or different kinds of buttons. We're going to use all three of these, I think. These are sort of the old school default ones, submit and reset, that you submit the form and reset the form. And then button is a little newer, but it doesn't really do anything on its own. You have to add some JavaScript to it. So I'll show you that one, but we'll probably use the submit form. And then here's a little example form. So you've got the form tag here. It has an action. This is just a placeholder action. You would actually put the URL, like I said, of the actual program that's going to run and process that form. And then here's the method, which is post, which is going to send the data as separate parts. Different packets, right? So it's better for large amounts of data. By the way, where do you get these? Where do you get these fancy form processing scripts? A lot of servers, a lot of hosting companies will come with built-in scripts. So a common example would be like a contact form, right? So they may have a script that processes a contact form. So you just have to hook into the specific names and IDs maybe, but names maybe of the different fields. And then you can access that script on your server because it's being processed by your web host, and it'll work. So when you're looking for a web host, if you're looking for a web host, see what sort of forms they include or form processing scripts they include. Almost all of them will have something, as long as it's like not a free account kind of thing. So we got a couple of labels here. We got a couple different input types, and we've got a submit button, and then we've got a closing form tag. So the minimum is you have to have an opening form tag, a closing form tag, some input fields, and I think you do have to have a submit button, or else what's it going to do, right? Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too fast, but let's go back up and actually work on this thing. So I didn't want to show you this because it's so ugly before I started talking about the forms. So what this is a very broken, half-done page of form inputs and one form. And so it looks pretty messed up because you guys are going to help me finish it. It's like a half-baked cooking show kind of thing. All right, so we're going to start with the HTML. There are some places to add some CSS up here as well. I tried to mark every spot in the code for everyone. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I tried to mark the spot in the code where you're going to input things with comment tags. So there are a little bit of CSS we're going to put in here, just some relevant stuff. There's some pretty fancy CSS in here. Maybe if I have time, I'll come back and talk a little bit about it. But it's all for processing that or styling that form that we're working on here. So, all right. So there is a closing form tag in here. I think is way down somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's pretty far down there. Somewhere down there, there's a closing form tag. But I didn't include the opening tag because I wanted you guys to do it. So that's why this page is pretty broken. It's got half tags in there and things. So let's start the form that is right under pizza in a movie here. So about line 183, and these lines will probably change, but that's okay. So we're going to add the form tag. So we can use some Emmet for this. I'm just going to say FORM for form, right, and hit return. And then I get the form opening and closing tag. I don't need this closing tag because there already is one way down at the bottom of this form down here. So make sure you delete that or you will have the broken form already. And you can see now that I have the form tag on there, there was already a style for the form, which you will usually see, right? You usually see a form has like a little box or card container that will show you like, oh, here's the form. This is the form. It's got this white background. So that style was already in there. I just had to add the form tag. Okay, so I'm going to type in the action is going to be process, and this is made up. I don't have this. I don't have this script, but we'll pretend that I do. So I'm going to say process.php, which is one type of scripting language used for forms sometimes. And then I'm going to say method equals post. And you can see there's get and post. There's also a newer one called dialog, but we won't get into that. I don't think it's used a whole lot. It's for dialog boxes, basically. So there we go. So there's a minimal opening form tag. It has form. It has the action, which is where it's going to get processed, or the script that's going to process the form, and then it has the method either post or get usually. Yeah, so there you go. Then we're going to add a field set. So there's a closing field set tag down here somewhere as well. Yeah, here's the closing field set tag. So I don't have the opening one. And then we're going to add a legend as well. So let's go back up after that form tag and say field set. If I could spell field set. There we go. And I already have the closing, remember? So remember, VS Code is going to add the closing tag because it thinks like, oh, he opened the field set tag, he needs to close it, but it's already closed down there. So make sure you get rid of that field set. I'm going to add an ID, even though I'm not using it, but you can add IDs to different field sets and things to style them. Like I said, field sets are good for styling things. So I'm going to add ID equals customer -info. I don't have anything applied to this, but feel free, if you need to, add an ID to field sets so you can style them or do something else with them, maybe on the server or something. So yeah, it's not actually doing anything in this case, but we're pretending that it is. The next thing is the Legend. So Legend is a really good movie. Well, that's pretty good. With who's in it? I'm forgetting now. You guys know. You'll tell me later. It's about a guy with zombies. Why am I forgetting? Will Smith. Yeah, it's a good Will Smith movie, which is a remake of a movie called Omega Man with Charlton Heston, which I think is a remake of another movie. Anyway, I'm digressing as I do sometimes. So let's go to, let's put in Legend. So I'm going to say Legend, not the movie, but the tag. And then this one does have the closing tag because we need it right after this. And I'm just going to say customer information. So there it is. So you can see here's the field set. So I already had these field sets in. They already have styles applied. So here is a little border or outline around the field set. Here is the Legend. That's the default positioning for the Legend. I think you can move that. You could definitely style it. I think it's already styled actually. But you see as it serves as kind of a label for a group of inputs. That's kind of what it's for. So that's how it kind of helps organize your form and also helps with screen readers and things like that. If I right click on this, remember you can always right click on this and inspect it and then look at field set. Here are the styles for field set. It's up near the top there on line 55. And there's a border on it. There's a border radius. There's a margin. There's padding and all that kind of stuff. There also are some default styles from the browser itself. But yeah, so you can use probably want to use field sets. You don't have to technically, but it's a kind of a best practice thing. All right, so that is that for that. So we added the form tag, right? We added the opening field set tag, and we added a Legend, which goes here. These already have legends on them, so I already did that for you. All right, so I put in a comment here to show you different types of labeling. You can do explicit or implicit labeling. This is explicit labeling, so I mentioned this a little while ago, but the way this works is you put a label in. This is your name. That's the label. And then it says for. So it has the for attribute, which says customer name. This for attribute has to match this ID. So customer name, they have to match. The name, remember, that's the data that gets sent or what gets sent to the actual server. Usually it's the same as the ID, but it doesn't have to be. But why change it if you don't need to for some reason? So usually they're going to be the same. There's a couple of other things to look at on this input. It's already done for you, but I just want to show you a couple things. It has max length of 60, which is means that you can only type 60 characters in here. Let's try it. Oh, see, I'm still typing. That is a very hard name to read, but it stops at 60. So that's probably too long actually. But what that's for, one thing it's for, is, like I said, so that someone couldn't go in and put in, a 50,000 character length name and kind of hang up your server and things because your server's trying to figure out, oh, how am I going to put this 50,000 characters into the name, database? So that's max length. That's pretty long. Probably could be shorter. Autocomplete name, that is the attribute that's going to suggest a name. Maybe you filled out a form previously and it's going to kind of stick it in there for you. That's optional. Required means it is required. So when you submit, it should sort of do some validation for you. So validation is trying to see if the form information that someone is sending is right. So if they try to submit and something is required and it's not filled out, then they should get sort of a thing that says, hey, you got to fill out this message or this field. And then placeholder says Jane Smith. That is just what's here until you start typing, right? So as soon as I start typing, then it goes away. And then if I refresh here, it'll come back. So that's a placeholder. So it's pretty common to have a label and a placeholder. It's just sort of an example for the user. You don't have to have a placeholder, but people are kind of used to it nowadays. All right. So that is that one. That's just an example. The next one is an email. It's kind of the same thing. You can see the pattern is the same. You've got I forgot about form group. So we've got a class, a div around this, and I forgot about the list as well. So it's pretty typical to have a list, use lists for forms, and then use list items for each form element or input. So because it is a form is kind of a list of inputs, so that's kind of pretty standard. It also gives you more hooks for styling if you need it. So we've got a UL here, we've got an LI for each of these inputs, and then each of these inputs also has a div around everything. You could probably do it without this div, but in this example I did it with a div inside of there. It does have some styles for form group, which we'll look at in a little bit, but that's what this class is for. So we have a class here, a form group, which groups these two together. So this is a form group, this is a form group, this is a form group. So it has the label and the input. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I forgot to talk about that. So here's the second list item, which is the email. Here's the form group div around the whole thing right there, right? And then we've got the label, which is email. That's this guy. And then we've got the email or the input type for that. And you can see that the input type is email, so which can do a few things depending on what you're looking at that element on. For example, it might have an @ symbol on the and I'm not positive on this one on iOS on an Apple device, but you might get an @ symbol on the keyboard, for example, because you need an @ symbol on an email. It also might do some verification, but we'll have to check on that one. But the rest of it's kind of the same. Well, that'd be a long email, 80 characters, but I suppose it's possible. All right, so that's the second one. The third one is a password. Kind of the same thing again. We got a form group, we have a label, we have an input, but the type is password this time. So the first two, the type was text. The second one, the type was email. The third one, the type is password. So what's the difference in password? Well, if I start typing in password, oh, look at that. My browser wants to give me a password because it knows this is a password field. I don't want that password. I'm going to type in my own. But what happens when you type a password? You get little dots or sometimes asterisks, but usually dots. The reason is so your coworker who's likes to steal identities won't look over your shoulder and steal your password. So that's what that is. But when it gets sent, it'll get sent, the actual password, not a bunch of dots. That would be silly, right? Okay, so that's the only difference really on that one. So we're gonna add two more inputs here of our own. So we can do a little bit of copy and paste. So I'm gonna take this form group thing here. And remember, copy and paste is, I always say it's kind of your friend, but it's also dangerous. If I have a mistake in here, I would be copying the mistake. Hopefully I don't have a mistake in here. But I'm gonna copy that and I'm gonna paste it here on line 212. Approximately for the next one, and it just puts another password in here. So the form group is right. The label for this one is customer state. So change customer password to customer state. And it has to change in both places, right? So it has to change there, and it also has to change there, and it has to change all three places actually. So we just changed customer password to customer state. This input type is not a password. We're back to text. So it's plain text. And VS Code should prompt you with these autocomplete for these input types because it kind of knows what you're doing. And then we don't need this min length. So let's get rid of that. And autocomplete, we'll say address level 1. These are just these are sort of autocomplete suggestions. Okay. We do want it required. We also can give it a size. So this one we can try a size on this. It won't actually work because I've got styles on here that are changing the size anyway, but I could say size equals 2. And if I didn't have styles on there making this bigger, it would be 2 characters wide. I need to change this as well. This is supposed to be state. right? So now we're working on this one. So we've got state there. Let me make this a little bigger because it's a little hard to read this way. Hopefully that's a little better for you guys. So we've got a form group there. We've got customer state for the label. We put state there. We put input type equals text. We have customer state there and there as well. We've got autocomplete address level 1. We have it required. And then we have size equals 2. And then we are, and I'm missing a bracket. That's why it's red there. I'm actually going to add max length 2 because we want them to use an abbreviation for the state. So a lot of times you'd see a drop down for the state, but we're doing it as a text field, which is not usually how you see it. But if I type CA, I can't type anymore, even though this field is bigger. So that's where the max length could be used as well. Like I said, probably state you'd use a drop down, but I'll show you a drop down on the next one there. I think that's it. Oh, let's do placeholder. I forgot placeholder. Let's go placeholder and let's do CA. And then now CA shows up there so they can see, oh, it's an abbreviation. Good? All right. The next one is a little more involved. This next one's going to be, I'm going to do one select menu with you guys. So a select menu, again, is kind of a drop down. So we can delete where it says enter code here, and we're just going to have to enter this thing. We could steal a label. Let's steal the form group and the label. Let's just steal this here. But then we'll get rid of some stuff. All right, so I stole the whole div with the form group and the label, but let's get rid of this whole input because that is not going to work. And the label for this one is going to be customer country. So change it from customer state to customer country. And then this is obviously going to be country. So that's our label. Just to make this even wider so it's a little easier to see. And then we'll do, we have to do name equals, well, sorry. No, we're good there. So that's good there. So now we're going to do select. So this is a select menu. It's not an input. So it's the one that's a little bit different. It does have an opening and closing tag. So you're going to hit return a couple times because we're going to put our options in here. So it's kind of an option menu. It's a select menu, but it's also an option menu. So we're going to say name equals customer country again. So I can just copy this and use the same thing all 3 times. And that's where copying is good because at least you know those match, right? So we've got select, name equals country, ID equals country. Let's do autocomplete. And we'll do autocomplete is country. Duh. All right. So now inside of a select menu, you have to use what are called, you have to use the option tag. So I'm going to say, let's use a little bit more Emmet. I'm going to say option times or the asterisk 4 and hit return. And I get 4 options. Probably should indent this a little better. I could format the document, but I don't want it to do a bunch of other weird things to it, so I'm not going to format it. But so you can see a little better. So I've got 4 options there. So now I've got a drop down with 4. Can you even see them? Oh yeah, they're already there. There's nothing in there yet though. But that's what a select menu looks like. It's a little drop down there, right? So let's see, what are our 4 options? Our 4 options are empty, but we're going to put choose a country. And now choose a country is there. Let's put a little, that's fine. We'll just leave it like that. And then we're going to put, in the second one, we're going to put United States. Because we're the best country, some people say. And then we'll say, let's see, Canada. also a good country. And Mexico, also a good country, despite what some people say. So, okay, so we've got choose a country, United States, Canada, Mexico. Now, if I click on these, you can see there's United States, Canada, Mexico. So that's a drop down, right? So that's a select menu using the options. We do want to change the value here. So thankfully, VS Code put in the value attribute for us. So this is what actually gets sent. You don't want to send, you can't send things actually with spaces in them and things, but you can change the value here, and that's what actually gets sent to the server. So I'm going to say value equals US, Canada, and Mexico in there. If I could spell it. So I've got that in there for those three. I could say which one is selected by default. All I have to do is add after the value. I could say, let's say I wanted to have Canada by default. I could say selected. And then I might have to refresh to see this. Yeah, so see it says Canada here. Even though Canada is not first, because I put selected, Canada is selected already. So, yeah, so that's an option to do that as well. And I think that's it for the select menu. So again, it's the select tag, and then it has to have the same name, ID, and you don't have to do autocomplete, but you're probably going to do it. And then you've got as many options as you want. Those become different options in the drop-down menu. I'm gonna make this even bigger. And there you go. So there's a select menu. I think that's it for that one. All right, so let's go down, keep going down. So we're done with this guy. I mean, we're done with this customer information area. So we've got name, email, password, state, and country. Right now I want to show you, so we're gonna make this a little bit responsive at the end. So right now the label is on top. We can put the label on the side when it gets wider so that it uses the space a little better, but we'll do that after. So we're kind of looking at it in a little vertical. All right, so the next one is, there's another field set, so that's the end of that field set. And the next one is, what would you like on your pizza? I want everything. Anchovies, sure. I used to not like anchovies, now I kind of do. Okay, so we've got the same thing going on here. We've got a field set, we have a legend, we have a list, we have a list item for each of the items in the, on the menu items, so they're literally a menu, right? But this is a different kind of label, so now we're using an implicit label. So the input is inside the label, so you don't need the for attribute. So here's the label tag. There's no for, right? It doesn't say for anything, but it goes around the input. So here's the input right here. So if the label is for, if this label here, if the label is around the input, then you know that it is already for this input. And here's the mushrooms, right? It's around, that's what I was looking for. It's right there. Okay. So this label, this is the label now because it's around this, the label tag is around it. Sorry if that didn't make any sense for a second. But here we've got input type equals checkbox, name equals ingredients, value equals mushrooms. That's what gets sent. And then we said checked already. So, yeah, so if you put checked on there, it's automatically going to be checked. You know how when you sign up for something and it says, do you want to receive 50,000 emails from us? And it's already checked. That's how you do that little trick, dirty little trick that people do. So that's what the checked attribute does. If I take it off, then that goes away, right? I'll put it back on. Because we want them to have mushrooms on every pizza for some weird reason. Okay, so that is an implicit label, and there's just an example of a checkbox. The checkboxes can have the same name, but they won't have the same value. So when it gets sent, it'll say ingredients, mushrooms, and pepperoni, for example, if they're both checked. All right, so let's just add one more. So I've got, I'm going to grab this whole list item here, copy it, and paste it there. So I'm grabbing the list item as well with the label and the input in it. So I'm copying this whole thing, and then I'm pasting it here. And then we're going to add just another ingredient, right? So So everything's the same. Checkbox is still the type. Name is still ingredients, but the value has to be something different. Let's go. I'm going to go with olives. You can go with whatever you want. Choose something crazy, and then you have to change the label, obviously, or somebody's going to accidentally order olives instead of whatever they wanted to order. So now you've got that, and you can see this works, right? I can check them or uncheck them. Even if they were checked, they could still... You can disable that. That would, I think, take some JavaScript, but maybe not. But there you go. If I refresh, it'll go back to mushrooms are checked already. So those are checkboxes, right? So checkboxes are made when you want to give the user more than one option, right? They can have mushrooms or pepperoni or olives or all three or two of the three or whatever you want. That's different from the next one. So let's skip down to what movie would you like to watch? So you can only watch one movie. You can have more than one ingredient on your pizza, but you can only watch one movie, unfortunately. In my service, I patented this idea too, this pizza in a movie idea, so don't steal it. Okay, so we got two movies there. We got Jaws, we got Star Wars. So how does this look different? Doesn't look much different, actually. So you got a field set again. You have a legend. That's this. And then you've got a list with 2 list items so far. Each list item has a label around an input type of radio. So the first time it was input type checkbox. Now it's an input type of radio, which is not a radio. It's a radio button. Be cool if it was a radio. But that's how that works. The name is the same on these. So what's the difference between a radio button and a checkbox? Radio buttons, you can only choose one, right? So if I click on Jaws or Star Wars, it deselects the other one. Not like a checkbox where you can do whatever you want, any combination, right? Radio buttons are one or the other. Checkboxes are one and the other, if you want. So that's basically the difference. So I'm just going to take this whole list item again, this one, copy it, and then paste it right here. And then you just need to change the movie. I'm going to put down the movie as, I'm trying to do really short names, so don't have to type as long. I'm going to say Go, which is kind of a good movie. I haven't seen it in a while. And I got to change the value to Go. So there you go. There you go. Get it? There you go. So same thing. So now I could pick one of those 3, and you can obviously keep adding list items and labels and inputs, and then you can keep going. I got to quit on that joke. Okay, so that is radio buttons. The next one is pizza time. What date and time do you want to have your pizza delivered? So I've already have the field set, the legend. I already have a form group there. Again, I've got a label. So we're not using a list for this one. You could, but we're using a form group for this one. So we can make it responsive at the end. There is already a label. It says label for delivery date and then the delivery date. So that's why it says delivery date there. But we want to put the actual date in there. So let's go ahead and select that and delete it. And then we're going to add input. And the type this time is date. And name equals delivery date. It's the same as this 4. And ID equals same thing again. And that is it. So what did I get? I don't know if you guys saw that when it popped up. As soon as I entered input type of date, I got a date picker. So it says delivery date. I can type here if I want to. And that's far in the past. Unless I have a time machine, I can't have that delivered then. You can also click on this guy and you'll get a date picker. That's built into the browser now. So I didn't kind of mention that, but a lot of this stuff is built into the browser. You don't have to make this thing. I didn't make it. It's not JavaScript or, well, it might be under the hood. But this stuff is built into the browser. So if you use the date input type, you get a date picker for free. You didn't have to pay for it. So there you go. So there's that one. So we want to do a time as well. So I'm just going to copy this input because I'm getting lazy and this is getting to be a long video. And I'm going to paste in right here. But this time is input type. So we're looking at delivery time. So we need to change this to delivery time right there and right there. And the input type is time. All right, so when you put in time as a input type, which I don't really see it that often, but it works. You can click here and you can get a crazy little selector. I want my pizza at 9:06 a.m. There you go. I think you can also type in here. I want it really early, 7:06 a.m. please. There you go. Oops, I got a little bit extra comment or quotes here. Make sure you get rid of those. All right, so that's the time input. And we've got a couple more. We're almost done. Sorry about this, taking a little bit, but there's a lot to these things. Okay, the next one is special instructions. I need this pizza baked outside on top of a car in the summer in Arizona. I don't like ovens. Please use the car technique, right? No, I don't think you can ask for that. But where do you put things that have, if you want to put a larger amount of text, you use a text area. So where it says enter code here under instructions, special instructions, go ahead and type text area. And you see it has a name and an ID as well. So the name for this one is instructions. And the ID is instructions. Not sure why it gave me it for the name, but not the ID. But we won't worry about it. And then this one does have a closing tag. You could put placeholder information there. I could put, let's see, type instructions. And that will show up and they can just delete it and type. Or you can leave it blank, which we will do, and we'll use a placeholder. So I have text area, name equals instructions, ID equals instructions. I need to add a few more attributes actually. I'm going to add rows equals 5. And that's going to make it higher. So that's 5 rows of text, right? Yeah, it still will scroll. And it's resizable vertically, or it's resizable. Let me refresh here. Okay, so I've got that, and then I'm going to add placeholder just to show you how that works. I'm going to go inside after the rows and say placeholder. I'll say gluten free, etc., or something like that. And so it's the same as it was above. It'll just put some sort of grayed out text. By default, it's kind of grayed out a little bit, but as soon as you start typing, it goes away. So there you go. There's a text area. It's for larger amounts of text. All right. We're almost done with the input fields, and then we have to do a tiny bit of CSS, and we will be done. All right, so you have to submit this thing, right? Or else you filled it out, and what do you do then? So that's where this, we're going to put some buttons in here. So I'm going to go ahead and say where it says class equals button row, I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to do a button first just to show you what that looks like. There's a button, and let's put send order in it. And there's a default button. You can style this a bunch of different ways. I'm going to say type equals submit to. If I could type it. Sorry, my code got a little messed up. Why do I have 2 of those? Sorry, I got a little. I think it was VS Code was trying to help me and actually made it harder. So I have button type equals submit, send order, and then button. So it says whatever I have inside this button tag, it goes on the button. That was a long time to show you that. But again, I don't think this will do anything. Oh, no, it does. So it does submit it. And you can style this. You will see button used quite a bit on forums. I was wondering if it would actually submit it. It's trying to submit it. See, it's saying, please fill out this field because that was required. There's what the required looks like. Interesting. Let's comment this out though, and I'm going to put in 2 more examples. So comment that out. Remember, it's command /. We're going to do this with input type. Our input type equals submit. And we're going to use value this time. So you will see it this way too sometimes. This is another way to do a submit button. Kind of the older way, might be kind of the older way, but you'll see it. I'm going to say value equals send pizza order, so we know it's different. It's kind of long, but that's okay. And now you can see a button that says send pizza order. This one has some styles on it already. That's why it's bigger and bluer and things. So you can style these buttons. The one we saw before with the button, that was a default button style built into the browser. This one has some styles on it, quite a few styles actually. A rollover and all that kind of stuff to make it look pretty. All right, so let's copy that and put it on the next line. And this, we're gonna also do a reset button. So I'm just gonna change the type to reset, and I'm gonna change the text to clear form. So whatever's in value on these becomes what's in the button. I kind of didn't mention that, right? So the submit button by default is, well, not by default, it's in the styles. We made it blue. That is sort of a visual hierarchy for the user. So you really want them to send the pizza order. You don't want them to clear the form. They still can, they have to click on this, but you really want them to order pizza so you can make your pizza money, if that makes sense. Okay, so that is done. The only thing to do is add a few different, tiny bit of CSS. There's already a lot of CSS in here, but we want to make this work a little better on mobile and a couple of other things. So there's not much. So scoot back up towards the styles near the top. And yeah, let's go to about line 78. Yeah, I have enter code here under form group. So we want to make this a little more mobile friendly, a little more responsive, a little more mobile friendly. So I'm going to say for the form group, remember the form group is around all these combos here. This is a form group. If I inspect it, remember there's a div of a class of form group. There's nothing in the styles though. That's why this is here. All right, so we're going to go in here and say display flex, which hopefully you've seen the video or other information on Flexbox, but this is making a Flex container. So now by default, the elements in the form group, which is the label and the input field, are going sideways, right? That's what Flex does by default. But we want it to go in a column. So we're gonna say Flex direction, if I could type it, column. So now we're back to vertical. So we're doing the mobile styles first, which is mobile first. That's, you probably heard that before. Because you're usually going to be, I mean, a lot of people order pizzas on their mobile. And then we're going to add some styles for the desktop after, in case they happen to be on the desktop. All right, so we're going to say gap. That's the space between the elements. We're just putting a tiny 0.3 rem gap on there. And then we're also going to add a little margin on the bottom of things to spread things out a little bit. So we're going to say margin bottom, and we're going to do 1 rem. So that made this space here. So again, you want forms are important, right? Because that's how you're selling your pizza and things. So we want to make sure that there's space. If I turn this off for a second. Right now, the labels are about the same distance from this, like the password, right? The password is about the same distance as this, or to this and this, both these fields. So you don't want it to be like, is this the password? Is this the password? I've been on forms, real forms online that you couldn't tell which input field the form was for. So to help with that, we're going to make a little space. That's what this does. So we make a little space between right there. Now it's clear, right? That's that old Gestalt principle, right? We want to put these together. We're going to group these together. So now it's obvious. This is the password. This is the email. This is the name. Easy, right? All right, so that's that one. Let's go down to line 161, I think. To look at my reference. Yeah, here we go. So now this is a media query that says when we are wider than 600 pixels, we want it to do something else. So we're gonna say, all we're gonna do is change it to flex direction row. And so what happens now is when we get to 600 pixels wide, it turns into a row instead of a column. So we have space now, right? Because we have a wider viewport, so we can put the label next to the field instead of on top of it. Basic responsive kind of stuff, right? You don't have room, so you put the label on top. You do have room, you put the label on the side. What did I forget? Oh, I said flex direction row, and then I also want to align this text. So here, I want this label to be closer. I want these labels to be right up to the edge of the input fields. I don't want all this space because then they become disconnected, right? So I'm just going to say on line 168, hopefully it's your 168 as well, text align right. So now, oh, look at that. They line up here and they are closer to the fields they represent, so it's more clear. Oh, this is this, this is this, this is this. Hey, I think we finished. Yeesh. Sorry, that was a little long. I tried to make it shorter. I tried, but there's a lot of stuff in here. There's also a ton of styles in here that I didn't really explain, but you could look through here. They're mostly for styling the different input fields and things like that. If you haven't seen this type of selector, this is a attribute selector. So what this means is when you focus, that's a form relative pseudo class. Focus means you clicked on it or you tabbed to it. So this means if an input is has a type of text and it's in focus. This one means the input is a type of email and it's called has focus, or password or date, etc. It just changes the outline and the border color. So now when I click on these, the outline on the border color change, right? So it helps the user, and I think it would change anyway a little bit from the browser, but it helps the user see like, oh, I'm in this field or I'm in this field, right? I wish they would turn this off. Or here. So that's what that's doing. So that's maybe the only thing that you guys haven't seen by this point. I think that's good enough, long enough video. All right, so I hope that helps a little bit with forms, and I hope you learned a little bit about that, and I will talk to you again later.